Not only is it the last day of the year of 2025, but it's the last day of the round robin of the World Junior Championships, where we're going to find out how the quarterfinal matchups are going to look. We'll preview the 4 games on today's show.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA Scout over at Elite Prospects. And on today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the 4 games that will be played today on the final day of, the year 2025 and of the round robin of the World Juniors here this season. Of course, we still have the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, the medal rounds to cover here in the new year. But to wrap up 2025 here for us on the podcast, we are going to be focusing on these 4 games. So if you're watching this, listening to this with your morning coffee, leaning back, enjoying staying indoors on this very frigid day, at least here in Canada, but this is what we're looking at for today's show, these different matchups, and we're going to see what the storylines are for each team, what each team needs to do to win their respective game, whether that be in the Switzerland-Slovakia game, the Czechia-Latvia game, the USA versus Sweden game, or the Canada versus Finland game. We have some fantastic matchups where the first and second seeds in both groups are playing each other, and the third and fourth seeds in both groups are playing each other as well. So we're really getting the best on best action so far of this tournament here today. A lot to look forward to, especially that Sweden-USA game to kind of beat it out for which team really truly has been the best one through the round robin in the entire tournament, because they've both been really good. I think Sweden's been slightly better, perhaps, but we're gonna find out how they face up against each other here. But we have a lot to cover. First, we're going to be looking at overall where the tournament is standing and potential matchups that we could have in the playoffs. And then we're going to be actually looking at the individual game matchups. So the second segment will be dedicated to the 2 big games with Canada versus Finland, as well as USA versus Sweden. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with the earlier games, the smaller ones, the ones that perhaps you look at and see them as less important, but there's still a lot to play for, even if we already know all 8 teams that are making the eventual playoffs. The actual seeding still is all up in the air, and we will be looking there at Latvia versus Czechia and Slovakia versus Switzerland. So before we dive into the show here today, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. So there's still a bunch to play for at this tournament. We already know a couple things, right? In terms of the standings, both Germany and Denmark are on 0 points and were heavily outclassed at this tournament. In terms of goal difference, Denmark was at 8 goals for, 28 goals conceded, and Germany scored 5 and conceded 22. Both teams picked up 0 points and lost all 4 games so far. Lost all 4 games. They're going to face each other in that relegation playoff. So we'll see what happens there. But the games for today do not concern the worst teams in each group. These are really about the best teams in each group playing each other. 1 and 2 in both groups, and 3 and 4 in both groups. So there's still so much room for switching around, right? If any team that wins their game will leapfrog the team that they're playing. That's pretty much a rule here for today's matchups, and that means that there's still a lot to go for here. Because, for instance, if you're Canada and you lose to Finland, and then you have to face a team like maybe Slovakia. If Slovakia beats Switzerland, they're not going to be an easy match. They have upset Canada in the past. It could happen again. You might want to instead finish first and maybe face Switzerland. But again, Switzerland and Slovakia are also playing each other. Well, they're doing it first before the Canada game. And Switzerland's defense has been among the very best at this tournament. Their goaltending from Christian Kirsch, phenomenal. Only conceded 6 goals in this tournament. They've scored 7. There's no easy games left in this tournament. There's no easy like right off win, no matter how you cut it. So I think all 4 games are going to be fascinating and hard fought, and also good matchups. I think that these are all going to be quality hockey games on the ice. But I am so excited to watch the top 2 teams in each group face each other. Canada's had some wobbles. Facing Finland's going to be a massive test. Finland, though, really struggled to generate scoring chances and get pucks on net against Czechia. They had 7 shots on goal by the time that they scored their eventual game-tying equalizer late in the third period to at least force overtime. Before eventually losing to that in between the legs Adam Jiricek goal to Czechia. But both these teams have a lot to prove to themselves, to their fan bases, and also just like in terms of gaining cohesion as a lineup for going then into the playoffs. So whichever team wins here really adds also a step of momentum. You don't want to be losing the final hard-fought game of the round robin. That's not going to help your odds moving forward. And that said, I think the biggest, most intriguing game here has to be between Sweden and the United States. Sweden's been phenomenal. Won all 3 games, have scored 15 goals, conceded 5. The U.S. have also won all their games, but it's often been very tightly fought. 14 goals for, 9 goals against, only half of the a positive goal difference compared to Sweden. Still, I think this is a fascinating matchup where you have a bit of a clash between a lineup with a lot of professional hockey players on the Swedish side facing up against a relatively undersized American team, especially at forward. A lot of the skill and dynamism is under 5'10", maybe 5'11". It's not all that big, but there are still some power forwards on that American team. But if Sweden's able to dominate that physical battle, it might be really tough for the States. But just the raw skill of players like James Hagens and Riker Lee and Will Zellers and Max Plant, Will Horkoff, the list goes on. Both of these teams are stacked, and there's a lot to look forward to in that matchup. So we will be digging into each and every one of these matchups at the key storylines and the players to keep an eye on. But before we do that, we do have a quick little message here from our sponsors at Locked On NHL Prospects. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so very exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place live bets as the action unfolds in front of you. Every drive, every momentum shift, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips right after a turnover. And FanDuel lets you jump straight into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up, and you can even take your own swings on the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All righty, let's keep things going here for this episode as we're breaking down the 2 marquee matchups, the big games of the day, the late games of the day, with USA Sweden and Canada Finland in this segment. If you click on this video, you're probably excited for these games in particular, and we'll just focus on them right off the bat. And we have to start with the one that we finished the last segment with, USA Sweden. this is a really big game. It's going to truly determine who's been the best team up to date in this first half of the World Junior Championships. I also think that the winner of this game ends up being perhaps the favorite to win this tournament. I mean, Canada's certainly been strong. They've had their fair share of wobbles, and I think this Finland game is going to be a really big test. So very curious to see how this all plays out over the course of the tournament. But for this USA-Sweden game, I think the story of it's going to be, if you're the States, it's that your undersized dynamism, a true high-end skill from players like Will Zellers, Max Plant, and James Higgins just is too much to contain for the Swedes. That being said, the goaltending advantage here goes to Sweden. Love Haremstram is a better netminder than Caleb Heil is. I think that overall, you can go down the list of Swedish goaltenders, and bit by piece for piece, they're better than the American counterparts. So goaltending is going to be a storyline for sure. If the USA just get goalied, are they going to get that same support from their own netminder? No guaranteed. That being said, that Swedish defense as well, it has a lot of size, it has a lot of physicality, it has so much mobility, is difficult to break through. And even at forward, you have really strong two-way pieces like Anton Frondell, and obviously no lacking of offensive talent on that team, whether you're talking about Frondell himself or Viggo Bjork or Ivar Stenberg. There is so much talent on that roster that the Americans are going to have to contain. So look to players like Adam Kleber to play really big roles for this American team to just stifle the Swedes offensively. And still, I find it very difficult to predict the winner in this game. I think it's almost a coin toss. It's really tight. I'd give the advantage slightly to the Swedes. I'd give it 60-40 maybe. But yeah, the Americans have a good team, a lot of depth. They've also have their role players coming up in big moments. Brendan McMorrow, fourth liner, AJ Spellisy, fourth liner, have been scoring key goals in recent games, and you're not just seeing your highest value players in your top six having to carry the entire offensive burden. I think there's a lot of depth of talent on this Team USA. Goaltending, I think, will every single point from this point onwards in this tournament, goaltending is going to be the question mark for the States. It has not been consistent so far. It's not really brought all that much confidence or I guess lack of concern or stress in the back of your mind if you're on that team. But they've just been outscoring their opposition game after game after game. But still, the Swedes have scored more goals at this tournament overall, and they've conceded a whole lot less. So I'm still going with Team Sweden as a favorite here, but this is the game to watch. I think this is going to be the best game, the most entertaining game that we have here today. Moving on, we've got Canada versus Finland. Massive game. The last game of the night. The last game of the round robin as a whole. There's so many questions I have going into this game. Will Michael Misa take the reins and have his true breakout performance of this tournament? I hope so. He was really starting to flash that in that absolutely dominant win that Canada left it off with here at the World Juniors. Of course, winning 9-1 against Denmark. Still, I still think that Michael Misa has more room to grow in this lineup in terms of the role and of importance that he plays. But that being said, if Canada's quote-unquote second line of Gavin McKenna, Michael Hage, and Brady Martin continues to be as dominant as they have been so far this tournament, it's going to be really difficult for Finland to kind of keep up, I think, offensively, because they've just been creating chance after chance after chance after chance. At even strength on the power play, doesn't matter. They click really well, just firing really rapid passes, precise on the tape, not needing time to dust them off, and just finishing plays really, really quickly. Michael Hage has arguably been the most valuable forward for Team Canada so far, but Gavin McKenna is leading them and the entire tournament in points at this stage. So a lot of these offensive storylines, I think, are going to have to keep trending upwards for Team Canada for this to be a game that they are the favorites to win. But that being said, Finland have a stifling defense. They struggle to get pucks through and shots off. Like again, I think they only had like 7 or so shots on goal by the time that Emil Hemming scored that late equalizer against Czechia in the third period. Just getting pucks on net. It's that simple. I think with Finland, they need to be more active, attacking Canada in the middle of the ice and exploiting the openness that Canada has also shown a tendency to create at this tournament. They're aggressive. They're not just sitting on leads. They keep pushing for more goals, but that leaves room behind that you can get to, that you can get breakaway chances from. There is a way to score against this Canadian team, and Finland's going to have to find that. But who is that spark going to be? Is it going to be a Heikki Rohanen? Is it going to be an Emil Hemming? We shall see, but perhaps the most important thing for Finland here is that Petteri Rimponen outplays Carter George in net. They have to win the goalie battle if Finland's going to have a chance in this game. And Rimponen, I mean, that he won the best goaltender of the tournament last year around and earned himself a draft pick in the offseason by the LA Kings. Coincidentally, the same team that drafted Carter George. So this is not only a big goalie battle between Canada and Finland, there's also some internal LA King prospect competition here between the two netminders. This is going to be an interesting storyline to keep your eye on. A little bit of perhaps friendly or not so friendly at this tournament rivalry. But yeah, I think there are just some really big storylines in this game that you're going to want to keep your eye on because there's a lot to kind of be decided in these games in terms of which teams are going to match up. Both all 4 teams in these big games, they want to finish top of their group. They want to have to face the 4th seed of the opposite group in the first or in the quarterfinals. If you start facing those 3rd seeds, it becomes more complicated. You're playing a team that's off of a win. You're going to be playing a team trying to be that big upset. They will be trending up. You're going to be trending down. You're going to have to regain momentum while they just keep it chugging along. That's not a favorable matchup all the time. And winning this game means a lot for this tournament. So very curious to also hear about your thoughts in the comments down below if you're watching on YouTube. How are you feeling about these games coming up today? And which game are you most excited for? I'd love to hear. But that wraps things up here for the second segment. In the final one, we're going to preview the Switzerland, Slovakia, and Czechia, Latvia games. But before we do that, we do have a quick little message from our sponsors at Locked On NHL Prospects. All right, let's wrap up the show here in the final segment, previewing the matchups here on December the 31st, the final day of the year of 2025 for the World Junior Championships. And we'll kick things off with the first game of the day. This is Switzerland versus Slovakia, and I'm excited for this one. This is going to be a really tough defensive matchup, I think, between these two teams. Switzerland has been stifling defensively throughout this tournament. Conceded only 6 goals so far in 3 games. That, I mean, on the surface sounds good, but just to put it into context, that is less than Canada's conceded. Canada's conceded 7. Sure, Finland's conceded 4, and the Sweden has conceded 5, but that still puts Switzerland as the 3rd best defense at this tournament, and that has been in no small part due to goaltender Christian Kirsch, the San Jose Sharks draft pick, I believe. And on top of that, they've also had Leon Mugli, Washington Capitals draft pick, just running things on the blue line, playing big minutes, being very, very suffocating defensively, but also playing a massive role in terms of moving the puck forward and trying to create in the offensive zone. So Switzerland is certainly leaning on a couple key players very heavily, but they have been more than up to the task defensively at this tournament. They have been no easy play at all. Scoring goals, however, has been a bit more difficult, but perhaps the same could be said for Slovakia, who have scored 11 and conceded 10. Both of these teams are have scored exactly one more goal than they've conceded so far this tournament, which is pretty good for third and fourth seed here. But Germany being 5-22 certainly has helped dole that around the group a little bit. But I'm fascinated here in this game about the goalie matchup. You're going to have Christian Kirsch and you're going to have Mikhail Pradel. Both of these netminders are excellent. Both of these netminders are in form. They've both been playing really well at this tournament overall. I think that the winner between that goalie battle is likely going to come out on top. I think this is going to be hard fought. I think it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be ugly, and that the winning goal is one that's scored from within 4 feet of the blue paint. I think it's really going to happen in the dirty areas in this one. I don't think you're going to get all that many clean shots off. You're going to have a lot of defenders just throwing themselves into shooting lanes, blocking passing lanes as well. It's going to be an ugly one, but in a really, really good way. So I'm excited for this game, and I do expect Slovakia to come out on top, as good as Switzerland has been defensively at this tournament. I just think that Slovakia has too many tools at their disposal, and Tomáš Krenko has just been an absolute goal-scoring machine in the last 2 games. 5 goals in those 2, hat-trick against Germany. There's a lot to like here with Slovakia, and quite a few storylines, I think, as well, that will benefit them eventually, but they have to improve their penalty kill. It's been one of the worst at this tournament of all the teams, whereas it's been one of the massive strengths for Switzerland, a top 2 penalty kill at this tournament. You're going to have to really focus in on that special teams battle. I think that's really where it's going to be won and lost. But who do you think is going to win this game? And also, I think I forgot to mention who I thought was going to win the Canada-Finland game. And I am going with Canada here. I think that just the raw talent's going to be overwhelming, but I think that's going to be shakier than perhaps Canadians want it to be. Maybe win by a goal or 2, extended by an empty netter in there. And overall, I think hard fought, but a Canadian victory. But let's move on to the final game that we're covering here today. The second game that is happening today between Czechia and Latvia. And this is a fun one because Latvia has been just a joy at this tournament the last few years. I mean, last year they were everyone's favorite underdogs. This year, seemingly they are again. I mean, they were stifling against Canada. They've been playing really, really good hockey at this tournament. They forced overtime to Canada. It's the only point that they've dropped at this tournament so far was to Latvia. And yet the Czechs, I think, have more room to improve. They haven't shown their best hockey just yet. They were stifling defensively against the Finns. They weren't conceding any chances at all from the slot. They were just so difficult to break through and defensively solid. I think that both Tomáš Galvaš and Adam Jiricek have been so key for this team defensively, but also offensively, as you saw with Jiricek's overtime winner. Galvaš is at 2 points a game at this tournament with 6 in just 3 appearances. And overall, I think that those 2 guys are just going to be such X factors from the blue line. But Latvia's hope, I think, rests with a young man by the name of Alberts Šmits. Their draft-eligible phenom is their best player, their biggest minute muncher. If he is the best player on the ice, I think they have a good chance to win this game, so long as they still win the goalie battle. The Czechs need better goal tending from Orsolak. It just hasn't been up to par so far this tournament, whereas the Latvians have really benefited from strong performances from Niels Maurens. So you really do have these, I think, cruxes where, yeah, individual talent alone, the Czechs beat out the Latvians here, but they might not even have the best player on the ice. That might be Alberts Šmits. And if the goaltending keeps going as it's been going so far this tournament, the Latvians also have a benefit there. So this is a tight one. This is going to be a fascinating game to watch. And overall, I'm so excited to see which player ends up being the hero. My money's on Václav Nesteršíl. I think he's been phenomenal at this tournament. Of course, we interviewed him as well here on the channel a couple months ago, and we'll hopefully have another chat with him coming in January. But that wraps things up here for the show today and our previews for the games that we have on the 31st of December. I wish you a wonderful last day of the year 2025. May it end on a good note. And would love to hear as well what your plans and hopes and dreams, and if you do them, resolutions are for the year 2026 in the comments down below. But that is it here for us today. I'm your host, Sebastian High. Thank you so much for tuning in as always, and I'll be catching you listening again very, very soon.